Welcome to Divine Downloads. I'm your host, Cassandra, and today's show is all about the keys to abundance. So I am so excited today to have Brandon Beachum on the podcast. And Brandon, in addition to being the host of Positive Head Podcast, also has a book that we're going to gift all of you guys today called The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. I don't know if there's a soul listening that's not like, yes, please, Brandon, tell me how. But before we get into there's multiple, it's not just one key. There's actually 8 keys in the book that you go into. I want to first hear, how did this quest for you begin? What was there some sort of calling that you had to dive in to figure out this teaching and this mystery around abundance?
Yeah, great question. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to dive in with you. And so so a little bit of my background in what called me to write this. For one, I have on my podcast, and I'm sure you can relate to this, I have a lot of people who come on and have very powerful visions, or I just had tea with extraterrestrials yesterday kind of thing. And just a lot of like a multi-dimensional type experience and things like that. I'm not having a ton of those sorts of experiences. I haven't had tea with my Arcturian self yet.
Not
although
yet.
I'm open. What I have is a lot of like, I'd say more than average synchronicity or spiritual breadcrumbs stories. And in the book was no different. So, I started on a spiritual path over 20 years ago now, and 25 years ago. And at the time, people were, I was having my own spiritual awakening, and people were like, I was just so shocked by what I was learning and feeling and remembering, the truth of the ultimate nature of reality, that we're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. And so I was like, at the time, this is like mid 90s. So there was no Facebook or Instagram. And so that it wasn't easily, I don't know, the world's gotten smaller since then. I feel like it's like you couldn't easily get to the people that you were, I was reading books, but other than that, there's no one around me. And I would talk about the stuff that I'm discovering and remembering. And people were like, that's interesting. Or, wow, what are you smoking? And go about their daily lives, and so at the time, I can only guess because it was my dharmic path. I was just so lit up about this topic in general. So it led to a now 25-year deep exploration of, what it means to become aware that you are in a, hologram of sorts of your own making, we're godding in a sense, God experiencing herself and playing this eternal game of cat and mouse, I believe. And so, I've just been exploring that for a very long time. And then along the way, a lot of synchronicity and spiritual breadcrumbs have sort of led me, one way or another, at key moments. And that happened August 6th, 2020. I remember I woke up, I had a dream, and it was deep in the COVID chrysalis at the time, August, a few months into it. And I woke up, I'd had this dream about, the book. I always knew I would write a book, and I actually started one many years ago and kind of shelved it and thought, well, maybe I'll start a podcast first and actually have someone that will want this book. And I've never got back to it. And so then I had this dream August 6th, and it kind of, here's what it should be about. Here's the unique way in which you should get it out there and allow people to share it and share abundance along with it, kind of gamify it, if you will. So I woke up with the whole sort of concept in my head and felt very lit up about it, and went and searched, does anyone use the name Golden Key? And I found someone in 1931, a guy named Emmett Fox, wrote a pamphlet or an essay called The Golden Key that was very, when I read the description, I got chills because it was very similar, like this gamification. I dare you to just read it and try these ideas on for yourself. And it felt like, oh my gosh, this is like the next version, I must be connected to this guy, and then I mentioned that on the podcast, and then someone sent me another famous book of his. He was one of the early people sort of bridging Christianity and, the sort of, I don't know, whatever you want to call our perspectives on the ultimate nature of reality, oneness. And so he was, 1931, bridging this gap. And he wrote another book and called Sermon on the Mount. That's, I guess, his most famous. And someone's like, "Oh, you need to read Sermon on the Mount if you're connected to him." And I go and look, and sure enough, it was published on Amazon on my birthday. And one of my wildest birthdays, one of my wildest synchronicities is around my birthday. It's my dad's birthday and grandmother's birthday, and great grandmother died on that day, and met a soulmate on that day, and her partner before me committed suicide on that day, and his name was Anson, and all my relatives with that birthday are from Anson, North Carolina. And that's just like there's like 10 more minutes to the story. It's gotten so long and ridiculous. I that's my summary version now, because I get tired of hearing myself tell it all. There's so much. But
what's the day though? I feel like we need to know what the day is.
July 28th.
Okay, watch out for July 28th.
I had an intuitive on my show years ago who's like, I'm gonna go meditate on this, I'm psychic. I'm gonna find out what's going on here. And I'm like, ooh, finally, I'm gonna get something really multidimensional, something really trippy, multidimensional, past lives, who knows? And as my higher self would have it go, I always think about what our higher self was just like an extension of ourselves. And so I know mine would like screw with me a lot. And so I'm like, okay. So
that must explain why mine's so sassy.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, this I'm gonna get something really juicy here. No Arcturians, no battlefields, and some great war. She was like, oh, all I got is you're gonna keep getting this as a sign, and it's a thing for you to kind of follow those breadcrumbs. But I did find this, and here she comes with this super grounded 3D thing, and it was a survey that they did in England a few years ago to trying to determine what is the best day to be born. And guess what they came up with as their answer, which is the silliest thing I've ever heard. Like, how do you determine a best birthday? Like, they have their logic in this piece, but that was what I got from the intuitive. Oh, you're going to get more of it. Here's a newspaper article talking about, something really 3D. So yeah, I've continued to follow those breadcrumbs. I'll add one more thing, because you asked about the book. Dreamed it, the whole thing with Emmett Fox. Then my good friend is one of the most brilliant visionary artists on the planet. His name is Vajra. Vajra, if any of you guys want to check him out. His work is incredible. And I share actually a story of synchronicity with him in the book, The Golden Key, how I met him, which led to which led to him meeting his wife on my show, Optimistic, which is a late night style show I shoot. They were the first visionary artist and musical guests. They got married on 11/11 2 years ago, and it's 11/11 right now.
11.
So this is his 2-year anniversary. Shout out Vajra and the Magica.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, and so I wanted to see if he would do the cover art. So I go and I decide, I'm like, but his process, he can take years on a painting sometimes. I'm trying to put this out yesterday. So I decide to reach out to him anyway. I tell him my whole dream and, my whole spiel like I do. And he's like, okay, you done? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so let me tell you about my dream. And he gets out his dream journal, and he's like, his dream happened a few months earlier, but it was so impactful. He wrote it all down. He was the property. I manage a co-living space in Venice Beach. We call the Mystic Manor. And we named it after the show Optimistic that we filmed here and that he was on in that first episode. But so he's in his dream, he's reading it to me, and he's like, he's at the Mystic Manor in his dream, and he's hunting for the key to everything. And so he goes through this elaborate dream, which I was like the villain in some weird way. It was like a crazy, wild dream. But the whole thing was he was coming to the Mystic Manor to get and protect and the key to everything. And so he said, to answer your question, will I do the cover art to your book, The Golden Key? I started it 2 months ago based off of this dream that I was so inspired to, so he sends me over.
Whoa.
I know, isn't it wild? So then if you see the cover art of the book, which is really epic, it's from, his was pretty rough still. He had just only worked on it somewhat. And then he's more of a painter type. And then my friend who's a digital artist, they got together, and what you see is the final product of their collaboration.
Wow. So divinely birthed into the world. I relate.
That's how it got here.
I love that. And yeah, I just love all the synchronicities and how everything lines up, and then how you end up, here on recording the podcast on 11/11.
I know, you can't make this stuff up. It's like, oh yeah, of course. And me and him it's like there's a whole really long story of him and I in a painting that I own of his that led to our meeting, and it was a whole lesson for us both in this whole journey that led to his marriage and led to a great friendship. And so
it really is amazing when you start attuning yourself to seeing the different like breadcrumbs, as you called it, or the little the little dots, right, as they start connecting. And one of the things I always think of, when I think of my work, and you just remind me of this so much, is I always say it's about like allowing people to see the world in a more magical way. Yeah. Right. Allowing them to attune to the magic it's already there. Right. Yeah. But actually getting to live in that and being like, oh my God, and this and this. And then you start realizing, how everything's just flowing for you. But I want to get into, so someone watching this or listening to this, wherever they are, who's feeling particularly stuck around abundance, who's feeling like, I feel like, I love that you wrote this book, around abundance. And I know it's also abundance in the greater aspect of what abundance is, right? But let's do financial abundance and then greater abundance as well. Because I feel like, when we enter into the spiritual world, a lot of, I call it edging, but I'm sure there's another different word. We say like, oh, all this, I believe all of this, but not in this area of my life. Right. And so I can like attune to the magic and believe the synchronicities and know that like everything's happening for me and not to me. But a lot of people really struggle with that around money. Yeah. Where do we begin? Yeah.
Well, first thing I would suggest, if you happen to know of a bank that has like low security, right, you can rectify this real quick. Like in the Old West, it was simple. So, once you understand, no, don't rob a bank, please. I'm not going to bail you out with extra abundance. So, it's understanding, as I like to say, when you really get something at a deeper level and understand its connection to this narrative of it's all an extension of me. I mean, think of it in those terms alone. If it's truly not just some, frou-frou, woo-woo kind of concept that all is one, like, no, all is literally one. You are an extension of the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. You're literally talking to and listening to vibrations of energy coming across, airwaves, however you're receiving this message. It's just energy. And it's an extension of your energy. And everything is an extension of your energy for that matter. So are you abundant? You built this place. You have amnesia. Did you ever see the Matrix movies? Yes. I always, when I say that, I always instantly think of I think it might be in the second one, or it's not in the first one. It's like second one where he gets stuck in the in-between worlds, and it's the train man. And he's just like in a subway station, and there's a train man that comes through, and Neo has just gotten all his powers, but he's in the in-between world, in between, the Matrix and the real world. And so he goes in and he confronts the train man, who's this kind of like sketchy character, and Neo thinks he's going to break bad on him. And he's like, and the train man like knocks him out. It's like, I don't think you understand. I built this place. I always think of that every time I say it. It's like, no, this is my domain. Like you're in the in-between realm. You don't got no power here. So the opposite for you. You built this place. You don't remember necessarily saying, oh, trees could look like this and mountains could look like this. And I'll take on this avatar at this in this particular timeline of 2021 or whatever. You just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just like when you're sleeping at night and the bear is chasing you through the woods and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought there was a bear about to get me. I forgot I was, Brandon laying in bed and, really I'm in Venice Beach and there are no bears here.
Yeah.
So, it's really starting to tap into that feeling of knowing, that knowing of who and what you are. That's why faith is so important. It's like most people are doing something like work in order to have something like money, in order to be something like happy. Well, it actually works the other way around. You be something like happy, you find yourself doing and having the things that are a reflection of that happiness. And really all monergy is a type of energy that's a tool to accomplish things in this particular video game called life on planet Earth and in this time frame, in 2021. So
yeah.
It's really just learning to, that's the beginning point, is learning to shift the narrative around the nature of the situation in which you find yourself. And if it's all an extension of you, that includes all the physical abundance on the planet, be the not, in the solar system, in the known universe, in the non, beyond the known physical universe. It's all in some way, shape, or form connected to you. So it's a matter of, learning how to turn the spigot back on. I can have a infinite ocean of water in my backyard, but if I don't go and take the steps to get there, then all of a sudden it becomes inaccessible and I dehydrate, I literally melt from the sun's rays and can't ever cool off, or, a lake, I can't drink it. So it's really, that's what people are doing. They're, a lot of times they're sitting on the back of a whale fishing for a minnow, not realizing they have all of this under them and within them, inaccessible. So that's really what the book is about, is like, okay, here's some of my 25 years of exploration. Here's my sort of perspective on how to start unlocking some of those barriers that we've built for ourselves. And by the way, those barriers are a necessary tool. When you are so infinitely abundant, like you actually are, and you have eternity and time is an illusion, like, Einstein proved that, if you shoot me into outer space and bring me back a day later, I'm a day older, and you're 100 years gone or whatever. And so it's like when you have infinity and you're all that is, it becomes meaningless. There's no contrast. Have the experience of not having financial abundance or any form of abundance for that matter, and then get to experience again. And that contrast makes it mean something. So really, it's all a tool. Your lack of abundance or lack of financial abundance up to this point isn't something to shake your fist at and hate. And there's a problem. There is no problem. There's only solutions. You've thankfully you've had that experience, so that in the moments moving forward, you can now use that contrast to shift your narrative and your perspective and actions, so that you allow more to flow in from the tap, and now it really means something. I always think of my brother. I tell this story a lot, where he's definitely someone who likes the finer things. He's very meticulous, and has had lots of fancy meals in his life. But if you ask him, what is the best meal you ever had, he'll tell you. He went, and when he was in his early 20s, he got in trouble, I think, having a beer on the beach or something, and he never paid the ticket. Actually, near where you live, down in Orange County, Huntington Beach, I think is where he was at.
Oh, no.
And he didn't ever pay that ticket. And years later, he got pulled over and they had a warrant for his arrest. He had completely forgotten about it. So they took him to jail, and he went to jail for like 5 days. Somehow he ended up in there a really long time too. And here now, my brother is the most sensitive soul I know. Like, he's a Cancer and just very, very sensitive, individual, very creative, very sensitive. So him in that environment was like not a match, And so he came out I remember he called me and it was like 12:01, just after midnight, so they could charge for one more day for him. They keep you past midnight. And then, come pick me up. Went and picked him up. He's just kind of shell shocked, traumatized a little bit. And I got home at 2 a.m. and I cooked him a hot pocket. And if you ask him to this day, what is the best meal you ever had? Guess what he'll tell you? The
That
hot
hot
pocket.
pocket. Yeah.
Why? Because he had the contrast, he had the perspective. And so that's really what that's the dance that your soul is doing. So don't hate the contrast that you've experienced of non-abundance. Just understand it's a tool, and it's as valid of an experience as being, um, Elon Musk or, the richest man in the world. It's just as valid of an experience to be had. It doesn't make you any less. You can play and forget who and what you are, but that doesn't change the truth of who and what you are. And at any point in time, and if you're listening to this broadcast, water seeks its own level. That which is like unto itself is drawn out of the infinite things vying for your attention. You wouldn't be hearing my voice in this moment, and Cassandra in this moment, if this information wasn't a vibrational match for where you were at this moment. Right. So you already know you're turning a corner by virtue of the fact that you are literally buzzing from feeling, but because beneath the words, there's an energetic offering that's happening. And so, congratulations, you're already turning the corner right now. And so, that's what comes up for me when you ask that question.
I love that so much. It reminds me of I was on a meditation retreat a couple years ago, and I had this experience in one of the meditations where, for lack of a better vocabulary of explaining it, I fell in love with my own comeback story. I fell in love with, it's like I saw these in the meditation, I saw these images of like all of the things that I've struggled with, I've overcome. I saw like all of these gnarlier parts of my life. And I fell in love with the me that called that in, right? That like chose to have that experience as part of her earth journey. And the whole evolution of that, right? And I love the way that you're saying it, because I haven't really heard it said in that way, about enjoying like the juiciness of the contrast, really. And
Yeah.
it is so true that, what money means to me, is so beautiful because of my experiences of contrast in the past. And the fact that, there was a point in my life where I was on food stamps, and I would make like rice and beans and like corn in this like concoction of like a Tupperware, and I would like scoop it out and eat it, and so there is like a part of me that like, yeah, right now I'll go to the like juice bar and I'll spend like $30 on like a juice and a salad or whatever, a gluten-free vegan cookie, right? And that being able to do that is never lost on me, right? Like when I do that, that feels incredibly abundant to me, and I'm very in touch with that. And I don't think I would be, and I would be if that was something that had always been so easily accessible to me. There's a joy in that, and that's really beautiful to point out, because I know so many times in some of the languaging in the, let's say, I don't know, law of attraction, spiritual, pop culture, whatever world, kind of makes you feel like if you're attracting like an experience, or attracting an experience like that, you have that contrast in your life, that it's because you're doing something wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And, you talked about your own journey. The hero's journey is, if you look at any great movie, any great film, it's always the hero's journey. And there's a whole, it's a formula. And the reason we love it, Star Wars, great example of the hero's journey tale, right? And the reason we love that story, because it's mankind's story. And I mean, I have my own hero's journey story in business and betrayal and losing it all. And here's $30 million and 12 hours later losing it. And like, like it's a hero's journey tale. And out of the ashes comes the hero. It's obvious, it's like a setup. So you can shake your fist at the setup that you actually your life is your soul's work of art. This is like the story that we're doing a dance of co-creation, I believe. And that's where I think it gets kind of tricky around the law of attraction stuff. And I touch on this in the book. It's like, it's not just the vibrational offering that I'm making right now. Okay, I want the Porsche to show up in the driveway, right? It's okay, what is your vibrational offering now? What was your vibrational offering last week? How about last month? How about 10 years ago? How about in another lifetime? Because it's all happening in the eternal now. Time is an illusion. And so all of these vibrational offerings are going into a pot of stew that is cooking up what actually shows up. What has been written into the narrative of this particular avatar, Brandon Beachum. Okay, well, from this moment forward, probably not there's many, many possible outcomes from this moment forward. But there's probably not a version where I go on to become the center of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen, but probably not that likely. And so it's sort of like, okay, well, what are some of the predefined things, if you came into your life and your legs, you were born without legs, you probably didn't come into this life to be the world's fastest runner, right? That wasn't part of the experience that wanted to be had by the soul. So you start, okay, well, what is my, I always say we're playing with our desire for what we want to call in and co-create next with this dance we're doing with our higher self. We're playing checkers and our higher self is playing chess. It sees the board and much more. So that's why it's really important to trust the mystery is actually one of the keys in the book. Learning to trust. Okay, I can have a expectation. Some people even say expectation is the enemy. I don't believe that. Attachment is the problem. So you have an expectation based off of everything you know of where you want to navigate to next, and trust that there's more to it that you can't even see. And a lot of times you're being protected from what you think you want for yourself, and you look at it as like, oh, this law of attraction thing didn't work. It's like, well, it's a little more complicated than that. There's a lot of factors. And so when you can let go of the need for any of it to show up in any particular way, that's when you're truly free. And so, that's what it's about is just getting into, okay, based off what I know, this is what I'm going to put my energy into. This is the vision I'm going to hold. These are the action steps I'm going to take to meet it halfway. And I'm going to let all that go if there's something, this or something better. Right.
Exactly.
So.
And that part of it is useful. It's useful in the way of, sometimes the thing that we desire, to the best of our knowledge of what the thing we're aiming for, we're moving towards, it really is like a guidepost, right? It's meant to put us on a certain direction based on what we're able to, in my words, I say hold right now, right? So if there's, let's say, if someone wants that, the CEO position at their company or whatnot, and that's because they're at a certain company right now, and that seems like what the top of the mountain would be there. And they do those things, and then what they can't see maybe is that there's another company that's even more aligned, that's going to be even better, that's going to come in and scoop them up, right? But we need that original aim to be able to move towards it and to be flexible and open. I love that, trusting the mystery, to know that I'm meant to be on this direction. That's what we do know. And where it's going to lead me, I have to also leave some room for it being even greater than what I can, in my human envision at this moment.
Yeah. It takes some of the pressure off, right? We think we've got to have it all figured out. You don't have to have it all figured out. You need to focus on your, acceptance and surrender to what is. Learn how to follow your inner guidance to the best of your ability. And then, here's the thing, anything that comes it's for you. So, Charles Bukowski said, all that matters kind of paraphrase, all that matters is how gracefully we walk through the fire. So
Mm.
instead of kicking and screaming, at life and like it should have this and should it to death, right? You don't
Yeah.
should your life to death. It's literally, I like to say, source, higher self, God, consciousness, the universe, whatever you want to call it, has never made a mistake. It's all perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. Everyone is getting exactly what they need to become the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. And if you really trust that, it takes so much pressure off. You are worthy by virtue of being who and what you are at your core. There's nothing you need to do to prove yourself. You couldn't do enough to make yourself more valuable than you are already.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You couldn't do enough to make yourself more valuable than you are already. So maybe out of the keys that are in this book, what is there one or two maybe that you would share to someone that was listening to this right now and is like, okay, I want to turn that corner to the best of my ability. Maybe they've
Mm-hmm.
been in a space of really feeling like life is just not working and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why it's not, they feel that way, it's not
Mm.
working, whether it's something they want to happen in their love life or something they want to happen in their career life or financials or whatever it is. What of the keys do you think would be helpful for them to hear about?
Mm. You know, one of the keys is love what comes. And when you can get into, it's like trusting the mystery, trusting what comes, and then taking it even further, you train yourself to actually keep your heart open in all situations. Like,
Mm.
so there's a great book by Michael Singer called The Untethered Soul. Are you familiar with it?
I make all of my clients read this.
Okay, of course you do. So what I love about The Untethered Soul is he talks about the heart being not just a physical valve, but an energetic spiritual valve in a sense. And so our connection to source, higher self, the universe, is through the heart being opened. And what a lot of people don't realize is, we have this, it's like a Ferrari, having a Ferrari that you're constantly smashing on the gas and then the brake and then the gas and then the brake. You're never getting the most out of your vehicle, your biological vehicle, if you're constantly starting and stopping and starting and stopping, and that gives you these mixed results. And what to keep the gas flowing, keep your heart open, because this is how chi, or source energy, is flowing through you. So if most people, it's a very subconscious. It's like, oh, I smell a smell of my grandmother's cookies. It reminds me of my grandmother's cookies, and it's a fond memory. My heart blasts open. If I smell a smell of something that reminds me of daily beatings that I got from my grandfather, my heart's going to close, right? So once you understand, if you start training yourself to just check in all the time, is my heart open or is my heart closed? Is my heart open or is my heart closed? And if I can start becoming aware, instead of this being a subconscious thing, which for most people it is, it's just happening by virtue of they're reacting to their environment instead of proacting. And so once you become proactive, I'm deciding how I'm going to show up regardless of what's there when I get there. I'm going to have my heart open. Eckhart Tolle puts it well. He goes, can I be the space for this? Can I be the space for this? And the answer is you can, which is why you wouldn't be there if you couldn't. So this is how we expand and grow in these times when we normally shut our heart. You're saying, okay, I want more out of life and it's not working for me. Guess what? You know why it's not working? You're resistant to it. Just by virtue of you saying it's not working shows that you have shut your heart down to it, right? And it is working. It's giving you exactly what you need in order to break through. Smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor, and you came to be a skilled sailor. So yeah, it's not working / helping you to work out the muscle that you need to break through the resistance to what is. And so once you can surrender to that resistance and just whatever arises, love it, love what comes, whatever Matt Kahn says, whatever arises, love that.
Yeah.
Whatever you start training yourself in this way. I wouldn't have chosen this for myself, Cassandra. This wasn't my vision, but you know what? I trust the mystery. I trust that the dance of higher self that I'm co-creating with knows what it's doing. It's playing chess. I'm playing checkers. I surrender to it. I'm going to open my heart to it. And then what you resist persists. Now you're not resisting what you accept, you move through. And then this is how
Mm.
you get on the fast track to then all of a sudden you're loving what is. Well, the universe says, well, Cassandra's being love. So let me send more things that are a reflection and appear loving. All of a sudden things start getting more unicorn and butterfly and rainbow looking, right? But you're being it to see it, not the other way around, you know?
And I love that because it's the most pure distillation of being it to seeing it, right? It's like, you
Yep.
don't have to even like think about embodying all these other things, right? Like one of the things I do love to do and I love to teach is like embodying your future self and that like next level frequency and all of that. But it's like we can simplify it way even more. You just embodied
Yeah.
the pure essence of who you are, which is love. And I love that visual of literally it's like this divine flow that you like open yourself up to receive in those moments that your heart is open. And you know I'm so glad that you brought that up as a response to that because it reminds me again, I feel like I've always my stories from my meditation retreats, but that's what I like to do. And um I remember at the end of one meditation retreat our teacher was talking about, and here's the thing, when I go to these retreats, one of the things that I think I got hooked on is because my heart is so open, right? I walk in the door and my heart's like right, and like it explodes. I don't even have to start meditating, it just explodes
Yep.
being in the environment because I'm surrounded by all these other people who came here who want to do the same thing, of the same intentions as me, and it's so easy for my heart to open, right? Just like you said, sometimes it's so easy. You see like a cute baby or a puppy or someone that you love, and your heart is hopefully naturally opens in those certain occasions. But my teacher was saying as we were leaving, he was like, all of you, and it was funny because we were at a hotel, and the management at the hotel questioned him about if they were giving out certain illicit substances because
Mm.
we were all so happy. They were like,
Hmm.
it's unnerving how happy and sweet and joyful and kind all of these, like this group of people are. And how
Yeah.
sad is it that that's the first thing that they
Right.
have to jump to? But of course, we weren't. We were just high on our own supply.
Yep.
And and it's like when you leave that environment, he said, he was like, now it's your choice. Now, like, what it feels like. You have that awareness of this is what's possible. Like, it's actually possible for me to
Hmm.
walk throughout my day and feel this much love and feel this way. And so I love what you said, and like to have listeners at home think of a situation that naturally opens your heart. Think of whether it's someone in your family you deeply love, a pet that you love, just a heartwarming story on the news about something positive that happened, and attune your conscious mind to what it feels like when your heart is
Hmm.
open, so
Yeah.
that then when you what a beautiful game to
It
play.
is. It really is. And it's like, what he talked about in that book is once you become conscious of the only thing that matters, the only game in town is managing my vibration and keeping my heart open. If I keep my heart open, it's like keeping the faucet on all the time. So what happens is I'm now my heart open, 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 energy, source energy flowing through me, flowing through me. It's overflowing. It starts overflowing, and what does that look and feel like? Really good. And so it's source energy is just permeating all around you, and people now are drawn to you. Like, what is it about Cassandra that feels so good to be around? It's like, well, you're just spilling all this, chi into. That's what was happening at your event, right? You guys, and it's even easier when you get collectively in a group and you start feeding off each other and, pinging off of each other. And that's exactly what was happening. And it just like raising the vibration, creating a container that's just like palpable to anyone. And that's what your life can then become, and it's one thing to understand it theoretically, and it's another to apply it. Everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the face, right? And that's Mike
Exactly.
Tyson put it. And so you just know you're going to fall off sometimes and slip into unconsciousness and negativity, and that's okay. One of the worst parts about the worst thing you can do when that happens is to beat yourself up for landing there. love yourself there. I just fell off. I really went into a tantrum and a fit and was negative and definitely cut myself off from source, and no wonder I'm hurting. I'm not getting any spiritual gas. And so it's like, and I'm just going to love myself here, and that's okay. I love that part of myself too. And then that boom, that starts opening you back up, understanding that every moment every moment is as divine as every other moment. This moment is as divine as any other moment ever has been or could be or will be. So when you start understanding these mundane moments, Monday at 2:00, at the copier, that moment is as divine and beautiful as any other moment ever has been, could be, or will be. The only thing that shifts it to be your job is to perceive it and to bring it out and to call it forth and to see the beauty in it. And by doing that, it's like the guy, I'm forgetting his name now, but he's famous for writing about his experience in the concentration camp, where he talked about finding the beauty in the fish
Viktor
head in
Frankl.
his soup. Yes, thank you. And it's like, that's the magic, and you start looking at what's behind that story. Well, there's a soul that actually architected the whole thing, and one of my favorite books is probably my favorite book is The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. It's a children's book.
Oh, I
highly recommend it for children from 9 to 99. I highly recommend it. Right. And it's like the story of us, and talks about how we wanted to experience this new radical concept called forgiveness, but who to forgive? There's no such thing to forgive in all perfect heavenly state. Oh, soul steps forward. I love you so much. I'll lose myself and suffer so that I can become negative enough to do this awful thing to you, so you can have the experience of appreciating the fish head soup, right? And I'll suffer to get there for you because I love you that much. Wow, right? Talk about really a shift in understanding of what's going on here. Yeah. It allows you to bring love and compassion to so much.
Yeah, I love that. I'm definitely going to check out that book, and
you won't be sorry.
And I just love that. I love this whole conversation. This is it's so wonderful, because it's wonderful to have a conversation about abundance that is so all encompassing.
Yeah.
Which is
the shortcut to abundance is appreciating what you already have. That's the ultimate shortcut. Like you're abundant right now. You got so much you can rattle off right now. That's a shortcut.
Which is essentially just another way of getting to what we just talked about, right? It's like, when you're in appreciation, your heart's open, right? When you're focusing on that, when you're focusing on, wow, like how beautiful is it, the sun coming in through the window, or how wonderful it is that like part of my job is getting to have conversations like this that I wouldn't have anyway, right? When we focus on those little things, and it's such an I think you talk about this in the book, and I don't know if it's one of the keys, maybe I'm going to spoil one, but about our focus, right? About how
focus your flow.
Focus your flow. Energy flows where your focus goes. And it's the same thing with that. Like, through where we decide to attune our focus to decides whether or not our heart opens, and decides whether we're in that stream of abundance or gratitude. And how in every moment, we were just joking before we started recording, right? Well, I was just like, how you doing? Whatever we were saying, like, no complaints, right? And it's like, why would we complain?
Yeah, right.
Anyone could complain, right? Like, we're all human. There's always going to be something to complain about, and there's always going to be something we could appreciate, right? And we get to make that choice, either close our heart in that moment, or to choose to appreciate the thing, because it's always right there as well.
Always, I like to say that most things are neutral by design, and then the filter that we put on them determine. If you start paying attention to your life, it's like, I remember an old business partner, and I was like, he showed up in my life in dramatic fashion. I was like, I'm not sure if you're, a devil or an angel, and I meant it, because you know what? He's both. depending on, we create people in our, and when you start playing with the idea, and I go into this in the book, that you are the lead actor, actress in your own private movie, and everything is an extension of you. You're the star in this particular drama, right? And I'm a prop in your movie, literally an extension of your consciousness that you painted in this image. And so, and there's enough room for all of us to be the star of our own movie, and you're a prop in my movie, and of course I make it. I'm the only one here, and
Yeah.
so I start, like, I'm not experiencing through any other lens. Like, there was a great image I saw by this guy, Nassim, quantum physicist Nassim Haramein, if you've ever heard of him, a while back, and he posted this. It was like a 3D graph that was like twisting, and it had like the graph node points all, and he's like, imagine this twisting infinitely in all directions, right? And however, if you go to any of one of the nodes, that's the center. And that's what you and we're a node of source consciousness, and we're the center in our own private, story, our own private drama, our own private movie. And so you start realizing, like, oh, hold on, people are showing up the way I create them. There's many timelines where, they show up this way, that way, and everything in between, because source is so infinite, it plays out all the possibilities. So it's not, I always say our life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. It's destined because it's all already happened. Time is an illusion. My 5th birthday party is happening on another channel. I'm just not tuned into it right now, just like a radio receiver tuned to a different channel. Future is happening on another channel. I'm just not tuned into it. I got to see this firsthand the first time I ever went to a psychic. She's like, oh, I see you in a cold place like Chicago in business. I was planning, this was in Atlanta, Georgia, where this was happening, this reading. I was planning to move to Chicago and work in business. And so my jaw hit the floor, and she's like, but there's this whole other path in California in music. And a year later, with sort of my own awakening happening. Oh my gosh, I'm one with everything. I'm source. I can create anything. I want to be in a band. Oh, I started a band, and then I met someone from California, and here we are. So she was seeing the potential. That's what I believe, feeling into the potential Brandons in that moment. And the Chicago one was more in my field in that moment,
Yeah.
but little did I know there was a whole other path which I ended up taking. So from this moment forward, there are many versions of you. Which one do you want to experience? You want to experience the greatest and grandest one, the one that's the most rewarding, the most fantastical, right? The good news is time is an illusion. So source has already been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt. You just have to catch up with it vibrationally. Your only job is to manage your vibration, be it to see it. And you literally navigate in and out of potential realities with your vibrational offering. So like Wayne Dyer, who I'm sure you're familiar with, great teacher on these subjects.
Yes.
Before he passed, I remember him telling the story of, people would recognize him in public. And someone came up to him and says, oh, Dr. Dyer, it's so good to see you here, like at a grocery store. I just moved to town, and, I know you live here, and I see you, you're here you are. Like, you've been here for a long time. I loved it where I lived before. Do you think I'm going to love it here just the same? And they raved about where they had moved from. He goes, oh, I think you're going to find pretty much the same thing that you found where you were before. Within like 30 minutes, someone else recognized him, came up to him. Dr. Dyer, oh, I recognize you. I just moved here. You've been here a long time. And, my last place, it was, people were awful and ugly and so close-minded and this and that. And so, we moved here to get away from that. And, do you think we're going to find it's, different here and we're going to love it here? He said, unfortunately, I think you're going to find pretty much the same thing that you found there. And so that's the perfect story to show, like, you literally are creating it with you. If you don't want something, give it no attention, right? You can observe it. It doesn't mean to ignore a problem, right? And walk into oncoming traffic. Observe what it is that you don't want. Be grateful that you've gotten the information as contrast, because you can't really know what you want unless you know what you don't want.
Mhm.
And so once you have it, give it no more attention. Turn all of your attention, before something and against nothing. The Wright brothers did not learn how to fly by contemplating the stain on the ground of things. right? Mother Teresa, they came to, and she understood this all too well. They came to her. They were going to do a million man march against, people, women, man march against the war in Vietnam, and they wanted her to be a key part of that, public figure that's in the face. And she's like, I'll never do that, but have a march for peace, and I'll be there. Because she
Right.
understood. She understood where attention goes, energy flows.
So what would you say, just to play a little bit devil's advocate on this, just because of
Sure.
other things that I've heard,
Hmm.
that, from like the Abraham Hicks school, which agrees with a lot what you're saying, but
Hmm.
also they do say, so for instance, if the thing that you don't want that you're seeing is like your low bank account, right? Let's say that
Hmm.
that's at the, or whatever. Um, you're not seeing the numbers you want in your bank account. And the thing you want to see is abundance in that bank account or money free flowing, right?
Hmm.
Would you say, well, I think from the Abraham Hicks school of things, they would say that if you focus too much on what you want to see, you're also activating the vibration of the
Hmm.
contrast, right? So in
Hmm.
that practical instance, what would you tell would you tell them to focus on, maybe just something completely different that brings them joy?
It's a great question. And this is where I tried to really go into the book to explain. There's a lot of factors that are a lot of ingredients that are going into the soup of manifestation. And so if I'm focused so much on, you know, I want more, I need more money in my bank account. What energy is that? It's an
It's an
energy of
energy of not enough.
not enough. I'm not okay with what is. I don't accept and love what has arisen, the moment
Mm.
of lack of abundance, and I'm chasing this thing that I think is the answer to my vibrational issue of not enoughness, and so it pushes it away.
Mm.
It pushes it away when you get into that state. Seeing the low bank account, accepting it, and then what can I do to match, first get in the vibration of what it feels like to, like we've talked about, like, wow, hold on, I'm really, like, when I say that, you built this place, that's how abundant you are. You literally created the concept of money and have amnesia to that truth. Like,
Yeah,
wow, you
I
you weren't
love that.
created on the day you were born 35 years ago, or however old you are listening, or however young you are listening, rather. um, you manifested in the physical dimension. Then you are an infinite being, creator being beyond measure, that you just by design gave yourself amnesia so you could have this experience and it means something. That's how powerful you are. When you feel into that, it's like the great cosmic giggle. It's like, oh my gosh, to wake up from the dream realizing you're the prince and the or princess in the castle. It's like playing the pauper. And so, you tap into that reality and feeling that energy. Now it's like, okay, everything else is kind of icing on the cake. Like, the first book ever written by a woman that was or printed, mass um, uh, duplicated, was Julianne of Norwich, I believe. That, yeah. And it was like 1200s, 1300s, and she had this experience of experiencing Christ. And she was very sick and experienced Christ. And this is like, dark ages, kind of, where it was like hell and brimstone. And, and her experience was really, I think, blissful. And one of the things she came back being shown from her powerful experience on the brink of death was, she said, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And at the end, when all the chess pieces go back in the box, you are the ultimate lottery ticket. You already won. So getting into that truth, and then navigating with a smile through the challenges, right? And knowing that your triggers are your treasures, that the challenges are blessings in disguise. Then it's like, yeah, you can look at the low bank account and be grateful. Be grateful for that contrast. You can see the bank account and the things that you want to do to now change it, and you're approaching it in a child like, joyful, playful manner, not urgency of like lack of, there's not enough and I'm tense. And so that's really what it comes down to, is what is your vibration around as you navigate through it all.
I love that. That's just so powerful to keep reminding yourself. And I encourage listeners, because I feel like you've dropped so much gold on this podcast, to re-listen to this a few times. You get that download, get it in, right? About that you built this, right? I feel like we all need to have like little stickers on our desks. It's like, remember, you built this,
You
or maybe
built
on the
this
back of
place.
our phones, right? A little phone alert. Don't forget, you built this. Like 3 p.m. when you're about to hit that afternoon slump. You built this. You're like, okay. Thanks, Brandon.
What a shitty designer I am, huh?
What did I do here? But having that, it's so true, because it's like, thinking about that, the first book I ever wrote was a food book, about loving your body, connecting to your body's wisdom, right? And on the back cover, I always thought it was so like whatever, and you get a book published, someone just yanks a quote and like puts it on the back cover. You really have no choice in what they're picking, right? And but the quote that they picked was, you can eat kale from a place of self-hate, or you can eat kale from a place of self-love, something like that, right? And I feel like it's so true to exactly what you said, right? It's like someone could be submitting job applications, or whatever people do these days online, right? Could be doing that from a place of like such joy and such open-heartedness and such excitement for what possibilities could be before them. Or you could be doing the exact same thing from that place of, I'm not good enough, I need to figure something out, like da 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 da. Right? We get to choose. And again, I just also love that so many good gems in this episode. The analogy of the fact that we're running our own movie. This is our movie, and you get to decide. Is that is that an upbeat movie montage while you're sending out those job applications, right?
Yep, right.
How does
what energy are you bringing to the what vibration are you bringing to the mundane? And that's what transmutes it from being mundane, which then leads to more fantastical experiences that are a vibrational match for the fact that you're being fantastical. It's it's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Is there any final thoughts? You've given us so much. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave us with before you share with everyone how to get the book and find out more about you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think that the most important thing that I can leave you with is remembering, coming back to the truth of who and what you are, that you are as worthy as any other being ever has been, could be, or will be. Your game of comparison is cute and ridiculous because you are completely unique. Comparing you makes no sense. So, I challenge you to, it's always the only thing I'm good at is the stories that I tell. I make something happens and I find a good spin on it. That's really, I made up years back. I don't believe in getting sick. I just made it up and I just would tell it to anyone who listens, and it's like you were just talking about with food a little bit ago. It's like, I'm not going to say I've never been sick, but compared to the average person, like hardly, I've never been in a hospital. I've never, it's been an incredible journey of wellness. My father's almost 80 years old. He's somewhere having a ho-ho dipped in, a milkshake or something. But his energy is, he believes that he's fine. And his attitude is so jolly and laid back about it all. It creates this experience that transmutes any of the negatives, in a way. It's like Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I had on my podcast. He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. And I recommend everyone check it. Or if you don't read the whole book, there's an hour, like, not TED Talk, but like he's on stage, giving the whole summary of it. You can find it if you search Biology of Belief. It's around an hour on YouTube. Highly recommend it because it shows you how the science of what's happening with your consciousness. And so, what's a good story to start telling instead of seeing, oh, I could never do it, Cassandra does, and she's so good at this, that, or the other, and of course, or this person on Instagram, look at them, and I could never do that or be like that. And I say, the story that I tell is, wow, I admire this thing, or I want this thing. I'm such a close vibrational match to it that it's actually showing up in my movie. It's in front of me and bumping up against me out of infinite things vying for my attention. Billions of things are happening all around you that you're filtering out, and you're perceiving this thing that you admire. Congratulations, you're that much closer to it. You're calling it to you because it is an extension of you. So that's one example. Start telling good stories. That's you are abracadabra translates to I create as I speak. Your words are your wand. You are spelling. You are casting a spell with the words that you use in the story that you tell. So get good at it.
Hallelujah. I love it. I
Amen.
love it. Amen. That is the truth. And Brandon, so is giving us access to his book, The Golden Key. So you all will be able to download it for yourself. All of the links will be below. Brandon, do you want to share with them a little bit about the unique proposition you have with this book?
Yeah. What I decided to do, part of the dream that I talked about earlier, was I want to gift the book. The most abundant thing I think I can do, I call it the good kind of selfish. If I help you to remember your power, since you are an extension of my consciousness, I will feel the energetic repercussions of helping you. So I'm selfish, the good kind of selfish. And so I want to empower as many people as I can. And so I thought the easiest way to do that is to allow them free access to really the book. As you can see, I'm pretty verbose. I mean, my own podcast, Positive Head, I have over 1,500 episodes. And so what the book is, though, is all of 25 years of deep exploration distilled into 100 pages to read, or 3 hours if you listen to the audiobook. And so what I want to do is give you access to both or either if you go to goldenkey.gift and you use the golden key code Divine Downloads at checkout, you can get the audio and or ebook as our gift. Cassandra and I teaming up to give you the book, and then you can create your own gift code if you decide to do so and gift it to others. And then what I've decided to do is to really walk the talk in spreading abundance. If at the end of the book, I invite people to play a game, an abundance manifestation game that entails them totally optionally paying something for the book after reading it, if they want to play this game. And then if someone decides to do so, I give half of that to whoever originally shared it with them. So it's just all about, let's do this fun game and give it away. And if people play that, ever put any kind of sort of monergy into the game, cool, let's just give it back to all the people that helped to co-create it. And so yeah, I'd love for you to participate at any level that you feel like. Many people just listen to the book and never share it, or great, perfect, whatever you're inspired to do.
Well, I love it, and it's such a fun, unique way of being an example of what you're teaching. And I encourage anybody that's listening that is, and I'm sure all of you by now are like, I need to get this book and I need to listen to it or read it. Pick even just one friend. Like if you have one friend that you think that you love to talk about this stuff, the kind of friend that also listens to these kinds of podcasts and stuff. I think it's so fun when you read a book like this with a friend, and then you get to have like those juicy conversations and unpack it together. So create your own code and share it with at least that like one friend. If not, hopefully maybe you have more than one friend, but one friend is still something to really appreciate. And it can be fun because you guys, I find that, having someone that you can even bounce off the exploration of these ideas with really helps them sink deeper into your consciousness. And then you serve as reminders for each other, right? As you're walking through.
And you never know who you're affecting. Apologies for interrupting, but you got me excited there. It's like I heard Charles Eisenstein, if you know who he is. I was on at an event with him once, and I remember him saying, who was more important, Gandhi or Gandhi's grandmother who raised him? Because you don't know who you're affecting, and so if you share it with one person, that one person could be the future president of, solar system, our whole universe. Who knows? If you've seen The Foundation, where they end up being the ruler of thousands of planets. You never know.
You never know.
They could have a lot of it. They could have a lot of influence.
Exactly. You never, never know. And Brandon, where can people find you on social media or on the interwebs to
Yeah.
follow up more with you?
Yeah. So goldenkey.gift and use divine downloads is your free code. And then, of course, my podcast, Positive Head, is everywhere that you get your podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this, you probably will find Positive Head as well. And if you go to positivehead.com, I have a really fun game with the universe, the YOU universe, where you can sort of play this game to get, I've done a lot of episodes, like ask for what do I need to hear the most, and then put in the first number that pops in your head, and you'll get an episode. And so it's
Oh, I
really a
love
fun way
that.
to co-create with the universe, and it's so wild what will come up for people a lot of times when you meet it halfway like that. So that's something that I encourage people to check out. And I also did a late night style, talk show that's got opening monologue and musical performance and visionary artists, live painting and interview and retreat guests. And you can find that at optimistic.tv, spelled like mystical, optimistic. And and then of course that's also on and social media, Instagram, whatever. I'm not super active, but I am on there doing things from time to time. And you can search my name, Brandon Beachum, and find me, wherever.
Awesome. And we'll put links to everything below so you guys can just click on the show notes and explore. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being on the show. So much beautiful wisdom flowing through today, and I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this and get all the downloads. So thank you so much for having
Oh,
me.
thank you so much for creating the space for me to share and experience my own dharmic path of sharing this insights. And so it's such an honor and pleasure, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you all for tuning in as well.
Thanks for having me in your movie.
Yeah, exactly. You said it.